What up, everybody? Zedas-Zulu back at it again with another review for you. And today we will be kicking off what I'm going to be calling my Mega Man X Chronicle collection with the first Mega Man X figure I have ever owned, the Jazwares Mega Man X. Now, this guy, I will say this right off the back, he is definitely not the best that I will be covering in the set of reviews, but he was definitely a good start in the American market in like the early 2000s for a good base and line of figures to follow. Now, like, just let's get a little bit closer in on his head. Like, this could have been a really good face sculpt if he just wasn't so chubby and like his head wasn't kind of turned upward, so you could see like how like just the rest of the plastic like widening his face, because like from just like right here that looks like a good face, but with the extra skin there you're like, oh, he's kind of chub. And then like details like this should be more triangular instead of rectangular, but you get the base details that you need for you to identify this as Mega Man X. And even here, like these back panels shouldn't be like this kind of light bluish white. They should be more of like a light purple, I believe. But like overall, as like a figure to start the line, well, he didn't start the line. I believe the Mega Man figure from this line started this line, but he was a definite like solid entry. And I know they also did a Vile, which is one of the very few Vile figures that actually exist, which I want to hunt down one day. But getting into posability, he just has a basic rotation at the head, can't really go up or do anything like that. His shoulders can rotate a full 360, go out, rotate at the bicep, rotate at the arm, which is a little tight, and then you get a rotation at the hand. He does indeed have a waist joint, so you can get that kind of rotation. The legs are definitely a bit like kind of where this figure is weak at. Legs can go forward, back a bit, out a little, and then you get a bend at the knee, rotation at the boot, and rotation at the foot. Now, one thing to be warned about these figures, they're definitely fragile. This is not my first version of this figure. This is probably the third one I've had, and what would happen to them is either a joint right here would break, or the like double ball jointed stem in here would break, and you just couldn't play with the toy anymore, or they'd break out like the knee. But while it's like, if you get one that's nice, you can still get into like some kind of good poses, and then just keep there or do whatever. Like, this is definitely a play withable toy, but you would need to be wary of things that could break, and that's why, well, I'll get into that in a second. Accessory wise, he comes with some interesting accessories. So he obviously would come with an X Buster, which is, it definitely seems like a remold of the Mega Man one, because X doesn't have like vents in his Buster or whatever, but they do get the like a nice red inside the Buster and the black around it, so it looks pretty good. So to swap that onto his arm, essentially you pull off this forearm, and only this forearm. Like, I don't believe you can pull off the left. Oh no, you can pull off the left. Well, either or. Pull off either or, and then you just plug the forearm bit into it. There's no like clicking or snapping or whatever, but it just fits on there. He can look good. He can kind of get a holding his Buster, getting a charge shot going pose. So that's pretty neat. And then his other accessories are this Z-Saber, which was done up in all clear blue plastic. Mine's a bit faded, because this is one that I've had from like one of my original versions of this figure. And then the gold handle, and I can just plug into either hand really simply, just peg hole, fit it through. It's very tight, so I would be worried about like scratching off the gold paint or whatever, but it looks all right. It's definitely a bit dinky for his proportions, so I wouldn't like, I didn't really like playing with this accessory much for this figure and whatnot. And then his last accessory, definitely his, I would say his most interesting, because you don't, like, no other X's come with an accessory like this. He gets this really interestingly designed backpack. Like, and they put a lot of work in this thing. Like, it has some gold paint, some silver, blue paint everywhere around these two bits. And I have no idea what this was supposed to be. Like in the box that this guy came in, there was nothing about it, really, just called it backpack. And it simply just plugs into essentially the screw hole in his back, like so. And now it gives him, like, he has like these little pylons coming from his back, and you can see it from behind him too, and it makes him unique and likable. Like that's definitely the plus to this guy. He's unique among X figures for having wonky proportions, but an interesting kind of accessory. Now, this line of Jazwares figures, they did come with like enemies, and I believe this is the one that came with him, a little Met. This either came with him or regular Mega Man, but just a little Met. He's just like hollow plastic, but he can stand there, and next can like shoot at it, just pew pew bang, it's out. So yeah, this was Jazware X. But wait, there's more, because Jazwares learned from their mistakes with the proportions and sculpting and all that. And they gave us Jazwares X version 2. Now, this figure is a figure that I've loved through all of my childhood, and this is the exact one I had from my childhood. Well, the one that survived. I had the other non-metallic version, but it's kind of similar problems to the other one. The legs kind of broke. They broke around here. And that's the problem with the version 2 styles of Jazwares figures. Like, these connections right here were at high risk of breaking. But the plus side was, with all these screw holes, you could take them apart, and essentially, like, if you had another one or you had spares, that like you can mix match and kind of make your own Reploid. Like, not a feature of the line, but it's what me and my brother did when we were young. Like, maybe one day I'll review the custom Reploid or whatever I made, but it's whatever. So this guy has this nice metallic finish all over him, and I kind of wish I sought out a fresh one to show you guys, because like mine definitely has a bunch of wear and tear scars from playing with it, because this definitely ended up being one of my favorite toys as a child. But as you can see, like he is the more accurate X figure, like a more accurate head sculpt, more accurate colors, more accurate sculpting in general, just all around. Like, this was there. All right, first one, a little bit of a hot mess, but this guy, we got it. And posability wise, it is basically the same as the other one, except just with better proportioning. So head can rotate all the way around, shoulders rotate all the way around, go out, get a bend at the elbow, and if you rotate his wrist, which can do, get a little bit more rotation at the bicep. Hand rotates independently from like the wrist guards. You get your waist rotation, and you get forward and back. And then with the ball joints, you can definitely get a little bit more because of how they're cut. And then the knee, get a little bit under 90 degrees, and it can rotate at the boot and rotate at the foot. Now be careful, like, while these are on ball joints so they can wiggle as well, you will definitely scratch up the paint that's on this figure, like I have. If you have the metallic version, I believe the normal version didn't have paint, so this wasn't that bad of an issue, although it was softer plastic, so you could still maybe scar it a little. But he can get in about the same level of poses, but he just looks better doing it. Like, well, he is a little bit harder to stand. I will give him that much. And you don't get as much out of those like football joints as I'd like, but still get him a pose and he can stand it. Now, accessory-wise, this line, or the second wave of these Jazwares figures, essentially, you still get basically one Buster accessory, which is definitely more accurate to the games, and it also had a spring-loaded gimmick. Now, over time, I have lost the effect part that came with him, but it was supposed to be, like, it was this kind of ball that was a little bit bumpy or whatever, and it would just fire out with this button right here, so it looked good. And this just like plugs into his arm, and it's solid, like it'll stay on, like it's not coming off, anything like that. And then he also came with, I would say, the better Z-Saber, definitely a lot better proportioned for these figures. Now mine has some wear and tear on it. As a kid, wanted to customize stuff, and as you can see, I was probably trying and cut it off and cut all the excess blue. But I stopped because I was like, yeah, I might need this later in the future. So it just plugs into his hand, same way as the other one did. But because it's softer plastic, it kind of wiggles in there. And now it's in his hand. Now it is a bit heavy, so it's rough to hold a pose. Like, you can get like that, but it'll flop down. But yeah, that's everything he also came with one other. He came with an enemy, not this. It was not another Met, but it was a rabbit enemy from, I believe, X1. Like, you know, the ones that pop their head up from the snow and shoot you from their ears or whatever. So yeah, that was the first part of the Mega Man X Chronicle collection set of reviews. And I feel these guys were a decent spot to start these off because while they are not the worst and they are not the best, they're a middle ground. And if you were lucky enough to have these in your collection, good for you. Seeking them down, they can be a bit pricey. I would not pay no more than 20 for either of these figures. If they're asking for any more, I would say it's a ripoff. But if you can hunt them down for a fair price, I think at the very least this guy deserves a spot in your collection. Maybe not this guy. Like, only get him if you have some kind of nostalgia for him like I did and wanted him for a specific purpose, which was kind of this. But, alright, that's Zedas-Zulu signing out, and see y'all tomorrow, or see you guys Monday for another review. Deuces.